This is a special edition of Finscale, a podcast created by Solène Niederkorn, shedding light on innovation in finance, banking, and insurance.
Special edition Money 2020 in collaboration with the Payment Association EU. As a media partner covering the Money 2020 event, I teamed up with the Payment Association EU to bring you a series of captivating interviews. Get ready to dive into the world of payments and discover remarkable companies across different separate episodes. Gain valuable insights into their operations, their collaboration with the ecosystem, and their expectation from events like Money 2020. Enjoy the show! Thomas Peters, Head of Europe Growth at Swift. Hello everyone. Hi Thomas.
Hi, good morning.
Delight to meet you at Money 2020 and to learn more about Swift in the context of this event. Everyone knows that Swift is a huge company. You do so many different things. So I would be happy if you could summarize a little bit what you do in 5 minutes. So we have a great overview of what is Swift.
Okay, thanks. Great to be here at Money 2020. It's a great opportunity to talk with you. Just in a couple of words, what is Swift? Swift started 50 years ago, and we started really by standardizing communication between financial institutions. And that's both on the technical side, giving a network, giving the opportunity for banks to interchange internationally, cross-border, and on the other hand, to create standards that make a bank in Asia understand what a bank in Europe is asking. And this for multiple type of industry instruments. So here Money 2020 obviously is more about payments, but Swift is of course what broader than payments only. We're looking at payments, securities, trade, FX, and so on and so on. So everything that a bank needs as a financial instrument is kind of standardized, made uniform, technologically wise, to be able to exchange that on a cross-border level.
Okay.
Now this is what we started with 50 years ago, so basically replacing the telex, replacing the fax, that's how we started. There's a lot ongoing at Swift as we speak, and we had an ambitious strategy a couple of years ago to move away from that bank-to-bank, institution-to-institution messaging, and to move to something that is much more orchestrated. And that's why we kind of built Transaction Manager, a platform below the payment route that will give you the opportunity to orchestrate payments going from one part to another and really focus on the transactions. It's a complete shift of paradigm where you don't look at messages going from one place to another, but you look at the transaction end to end. Whether it is, again, a payment transaction or a securities transaction, giving you the ability to follow, to track, and to add a lot of value on those cycles, on those transactions.
You said that you were starting that program of transformation within Swift to be a modern platform, if I may say.
More modern, more open, giving a lot more orchestration capabilities.
Yeah. And how, in what sense Swift is partnering with fintech players in the payments or in any other area in finance? And do you have innovation hubs? How do you currently work with these new players?
Offline, you also asked me why we're at Money 20, and the first thing I wanted to say is maybe shouldn't we consider Swift as a big fintech? We're maybe 50 years old this year, but still I believe that we have everything that a fintech typically has. There's something in the market that we wanted to resolve for the banks as a community, because we're a cooperative company. We are owned by our members, so our banks. That's quite an important one, and we're capable of moving the whole industry and doing some projects that are moving the whole industry forward as one. And that's quite an important thing that we bring by the governance model of Swift, by our board, by our members that are indicating to the board, hence to Swift, what is the direction they want to follow. And that's really something that is very special to any company around, and that's very, very different. Now, on your question, why would we cooperate with fintechs? I think we're putting the foundational layers of an open, much more open platform, as I mentioned, the Transaction Manager, but there's other things. In parallel, we moved from a non-rich standard, MT. Everybody talks about MT messages. Now, in the payment space, we're moving away from MT messages and we're moving to much richer data, ISO 20022. And that's a huge transformation for community. And that's only possible with the help of everyone and with everyone adhering to that new standard. But it will give a lot of added value on the longer run. And that's why with Swift and with our members, we decided to make that ambitious step. Also to add value, because our strategy is really to, now that we look at the transaction, is making sure that we remove friction and make our transactions go a lot faster on the network with more traceability and more information given to the end user. And that's where, with that new platform, ISO 20022, richer data, more structured data, we can add a lot of value. Now, there's a lot of value we can add by yourself, but probably by opening up over APIs, giving the ability of some third parties and fintechs to integrate, we will be able to give much more, or to interact much more with fintechs and try to see if there's value we can find from those fintechs. We can partner with those fintechs.
Okay. So you see rather fintech as new clients to you, or partners that you could potentially acquire?
I think acquiring, maybe partnering, but there's a lot that could become clients. And just to give you one example of typical fintechs that tend to become client is acquirers. We see a lot of money acquirers, card acquirers on the e-commerce platforms and so on. And typically they have to do disbursements, and those disbursements are account-to-account payments. And those are typically organizations that we wouldn't see coming to us in the past. And here at Money20, we already had a couple of startups, build-ups in that scope that are looking at becoming a client of Swift to reach the banks that we have on our network. On the other hand, we would have a lot of fintechs that we can partner with to build on the value-added services we offer and give a better, compelling story overall on the transaction.
And going back to the new ISO 20022, sorry, how complex it is, and will it be for the current users and current clients of Swift to integrate this new norm? Is it a huge transformation exercise?
It is quite significant. I heard a couple of banks, by the way, speaking here on ISO 20022. What we see is that at the first sight, it looks like something easy. It's how you exchange in between and outside your organization. But all your internal programs, all your internal applications are somehow relying on the structure that they used to have for years now on the MT part. So changing the whole thing is a costly, complex exercise, and that means that banks are taking an approach where they need to build on value to make that transformation, to get the investments, to do the full transformations. Now, what we try to do is, and what we did with the transaction manager and the platform, is giving the ability to the community to do that transformation at their own pace. So there's backwards compatibility, there's translation between the old and the new, which gives the ability to banks that are ready to process ISO 20022 to process ISO 20022, and a bank in the middle that would not be ready yet because they have till end of 25 to be completely ready. A bank that wouldn't be ready could simply use the translated message, the old MT type of message within their organization. However, the transaction manager, when you see the next step, the next bank in the line or the next MI in the transaction, would get the full data back from the original message. So we don't lose data or capabilities because one bank is not ready. And that's really the capabilities that we want to provide, both on a technical way and on a standards way.
Okay. Thank you very much. So you mentioned different initiatives, this orchestration platform, the ISO 20022. Other use case that you would like to share with us? I was thinking of Swift GPI because it has a significant impact, but maybe you have others?
Let's say that the transition a couple of years started with Swift GPI. Swift GPI was basically, for the ones that don't know the initiative, was basically adding a unique reference to a payment, making sure that we could track that payment
end to end.
End to end. and with a final confirmation. So when the amount is credited, that it is confirmed back to a tracker, so that everybody can see the transaction from begin to end, at least the banks involved in that transaction, of course. So that's where we started with GPI, and now we really move into this orchestration mechanism. So GPI is a great one that really changed how we perceive payments, because we now are able to spot how long a payment is exactly taking in the cross-border space, while in the past we only had perception. We couldn't measure the
clearly.
end-to-end performance of a transaction. That's one big change. And we're building on that change with all the new programs and the new opportunities. So we're building basically on, if you look at the foundations of this renewed strategy, you've got the richer data, more structured data, combined with the transaction manager, the platform that gives you the compatibility both on type of standard and on technology to access. You've got the tracking capabilities, and on top of that you can start to build new services. And one that is really ongoing, or maybe I should give two, because you look at our strategy, it's about instant and frictionless transactions. If you look at going instant, I would say that we go to the next level when it comes to GPI with Swift Go. And Swift Go is basically a new model based along the lines of Swift GPI, but for low-value payments, where on top of the traceability, the view, the tracking, on top of that you get pre-notification. You will know upfront the cost of your transaction end-to-end, the FX rate that will be applied end-to-end for typically retail SME payments, what we consider being low value. And that's really something where we started 1 or 2 years ago, and we see that we have more than 650 banks that signed up for the initiative, and it's growing quite fast. So we really see this as a next step in low value payments, basically being able to process them much faster with better SLAs and with visibility up front of what is going to happen with your payments. That's about the going faster. And then the second one that I would mention, because also I'm responsible for Europe North, and so looking more at Europe, the second one is about removing friction, and there we look at pre-validation services. So those are things that you would typically do before you send the message or you send the transaction.
Interesting.
It's all the capabilities that we would be able to offer, and that's a growing service. Today it's all about making sure that you've got the right purpose code, that you've got the right information for every country that you would need to settle in. So those type of calls are very important. On top of that, we see that in Europe, there's a new regulation for instant payments that mandates IBAN name checks. We sometimes refer to as confirmation of
Yes,
payee.
exactly.
And there also we see that there's a lot of domestic schemes that appear. Some countries have no solution. Some others have domestic schemes that have, I would say, more national reach. And Swift is there, again, from its standardization body perspective, from that trying to standardize the format, the API calls that you need to make such a query before sending the payments on the network. So those things are really projects that we do with our community to make sure that they can value what they have developed and that they don't have a cost per jurisdiction that they would need to enter. And if you're a big bank with active in multiple jurisdictions, this will be a game changer in terms of cost and efficiency of making a payment.
And what is interesting, we don't have a lot of time left, but what I find very interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the cooperative effect of having banks as shareholders of your own company.
It's great. As I said earlier, I think the biggest value of that is really to get the whole community to decide on some really transformational items like the move to ISO 20022, which is a big investment. It's a big step for the whole community. And you can't do that if there's only part of the community willing to move. You really need to have this view of everyone behind that decision. So it's a decision that maybe takes a bit more time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
but once we're there, there's a whole community behind, and that will bring the value end to end. Because in the end, if you look at Swift, we're more in the back, in the cross-border space. That's where we play a role, and we try to really evolve those rails and make sure that our clients, typically FIs, market infrastructures, can bring more value to the front ends to their clients. That's really our game, our scope.
Thank you very much. Last question. In which manner does the Payment Association in EU contribute to your success in Europe?
It's a good question. I think the Payment Association is a great way to connect with banks, with fintechs. So I know Thibaut by now for some time, and he's really someone that can connect you, that can bridge two entities and make it quite easy to have an open discussion without going into the complexities of trying to find meetings. He's really able to organize easy events local, so you don't need to move too far away. You can really meet with people around. And I know that I've introduced Thibaut and his networking type of events with my colleagues in Spain, in Italy, and they also participate into those events. So that's a great opportunity to connect basically with the community and people.
Thibaut is everywhere.
He's everywhere, in Europe at least.
Thank you very much, Thomas. That was insightful.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for listening and sharing this moment with us. Don't hesitate to contact me on Twitter or LinkedIn to share your comments and reactions. You can also rate this episode on your favorite podcast platform. See you soon.